Red crests a hill to a sheer overlook to a vast sea of treetop canopies. She leans up against a tree as her face is engulfed in the bathing light of an orange sun. The orb of daylight nestles in between two far-off mountains, behind a thin cloud haze. It's almost like a dreamscape, only further supported by a warm breeze sweeping in to embrace Red where she stands. It's lovely. She lowers herself to rest on the ground, allowing the trunk of the tree to fully support her. The insides of her body aches of new and old wounds, all telling a story she can't recall, although she can still very much feel the imprint of a lifetime of piling weight. Perhaps it's better to forget. Maybe this is all a blessing. With no memories to back it up, she knows it has been such a long time since she allowed herself to just sit down and be unburdened by whatever she once carried. Despite still being unsure whether this is all voluntary on her part, tears fall from her eyes as the euphoric heart-lifting emotion of freedom sets in. It may have been hell just trying to survive here, but it compares to nothing for the weight she's missing. She can die tomorrow and be content with it. Only because you are ignorant to grander matters, a familiar, dark voice says from right next to her. She only gives him the briefest of glances before focusing on the beauty before her. He seems to know her emotions and thoughts, as if directly connected to them. Fighting him in this power dynamic would be pointless. He isn't going to take this moment from her. Enjoy it. You live to see it, so you've earned it. Besides, our people waking to see countless more sunsets like this one is our ultimate goal. Red opens her mouth with the desire to speak, but of course no words are formed. But she does manage a questioning grunt. Our people are dying. Every standard year that passes by, our total population continues on a steady decline, and no one can give an actual reason as to why. There are countless theories and studies on the matter, of course, yet no concrete answers are ever found. You know what I believe? He says, causing Red to look at him out of curiosity. The man sits cross-legged, staring at the sunset himself, although none of the orange light touches him, already portraying any chance of him being a physical entity. I believe the universe is rejecting us. Like how a tree can no longer survive the soil without roots. We can't withstand the universe without a homeworld. The current high worlds may hold out longer than most, but erosion comes for all. They will turn on each other as the cosmic walls come crashing in on them. We will be our own killing blow in the ashes of cities we didn't even build ourselves, he informs, turning his piercing green eyes to Red. But my people have a solution, and you may very well be a part of it. You are my addition to the proving, thus I'm tasked to see if you are worthy. You have a strong heart. You know how to survive. However, can you thrive? He chuckles, before completely looking back behind the two. Red follows his gaze to see the creature she encountered a week earlier in her cave. It had snuck in while she was out collecting wood for her fire. She tried to communicate with it, seeing that it was wearing clothes, but she ended up scaring it off when her frustration got the better of her. Being alone hasn't been easy. Any sort of individual to interact with that isn't some bullshit apparition is sorely desired. And here it is again, cautiously approaching her willingly. His arms are carrying a leather-wrapped bundle and it stands frozen, obviously not expecting to be caught in their act. Slowly it lowers the bundle to the ground and raises a grasper up to show non-hostility. Kill it, the voice of the man says, but when Red looks to him in shock, the bastard is gone. The aggressive head turn causes the individual to flinch and take a few steps back. They seem on the edge of making a break for it, so Red remains seated and mimics the raised hand gesture. She makes sure to not even give her nearby stick a single glance. After a short time of sharing this mutual standoff, the tension subsides enough for the individual to gain back their ground to the wrapped bundle. Picking it back up, they hesitantly continue forward enough to hold it out to Red. With deliberate slow motions, the redhead uses her other hand to grab the top of the bundle and take it into her lap. The individual then takes a single step back to get out of a possible attack range, before pointing at the bundle, patting their chest, and gesturing to Red with open graspers. The Terran looks down and unties a rope holding the bundle together. It unravels, revealing that the exterior is a thick woven blanket, and the items it wrapped are 3 leather bags, the heaviest holding spindles of metal cord, flint and steel, and even a small iron blade. Red releases air from her lungs before looking up to the individual who eyes her curiously, as if they were observing her reaction to these tools. Red smiles, picking out the flint and steel and quickly demonstrates with a few clacks of sparks that she knows exactly what it is. This excites the individual, who pulls out a notebook from their side satchel and scribbles down notes. Moving on to the next gift bag, Red pulls out what looks to be another blanket. However, upon further inspection she finds a metal pin. This is a cloak. Immediately, Red in profound relief wraps herself and fastens it. Fashioning something to wear has been an incredibly difficult task. The nightly winds really restricted her from leaving the cave for too long. Her joy only grew as there's another, smaller cloak-like garment that she fits onto her waistline. Looking up to the individual, she attempts to speak in appreciation, but only raspy grunts come out. The individual still observes and writes down notes, but as they watch Red fully understand the gifts, their excitement boils down to curious concern. Meek's mind speculates maddeningly.
Perhaps this species is even more advanced than I thought. Or have they been watching us and learning that way? I shouldn't be surprised either way. If they're capable of art, then who knows what they know, she thinks, writing her thoughts down. She peeks up from her note-taking to acknowledge the grunting, wondering how she should proceed. This is certainly an intelligent species, a whole new kind of person in fact. Whatever she does from here on out, it's imperative she remain cautious. Last thing she needs is to accidentally insult them. Meek puts her notebook down and points to the third and final bag, the one where she is the most curious to see a reaction from, especially now. Eagerly opening up the leather bag, the strange creature takes out several parchment-wrapped items. Curiously, they unwrap one to find a slab of dried Grooman's steak. They bring it up to their pointed facial growth, and sharply inhale with their relatively small air vents. The tufts of fur lift up from above their single pair of eyes, which lock with Meek's. They then gesture as if they're about to take a bite, but don't. Keeping their focus on Meek, they seem to wait for a confirmation. Nodding, the Grat points to the meat and motions to her own mouth. Without hesitation, the creature tears its surprisingly dull-looking teeth into the cooked flesh. A confirmed taste of meat, however those teeth seem not completely meant for it, she considers, as the creature folds the parchment back up around the remaining half to ration. They move on to the next parchment item, revealing the brick of grains and dried fruits. Meek can't help but to lean forward to observe, as the creature repeats the face-sniffing. Without bothering to inquire this time, they bite into it, and they appear to greatly enjoy it. Very much so. Alright, not an obligate carnivore. Makes sense. Seems they share that with us at least, Meek figures, going back to her notebook. The creature grunts again, contentedly, while their mouth is full. Red leans back into the tree, forcing herself to put the remains of the sweet brick away for later. Wiping her face from the growing damp, she attempts to collect herself. When she focuses on the individual before her, she pats her now covered chest and slowly nods, hoping to express her genuine appreciation for these amazing gifts. To her surprise, the individual gets up closer, motioning to everything and to Red. They then make a repetitive cycling gesture with one grasper over the other, before patting their own chest. Red narrows her eyes as she translates what is being conveyed to her. Are they offering more supplies like these often? How often? For what exactly? The Terran bites her inner cheek and hovers her hands over the goods, then points to the individual, and finally to herself. She repeats that several times before just using a single-handed gesture to herself, and slowly shifts it to them as she tilts her head curiously. Nodding to this right away, the gifter holds up their exposed notebook to Red. They tap it with their writing utensil, and motion broadly at all Red. Red nods slowly, beginning to somewhat understand. They want to learn about her. Study her. For these sort of supplies? Nods, picking up the pace she smiles, baring her teeth. The individual flinches, but rather in surprise than fear. They then return a similar expression, revealing their own more pointed teeth. They then reach out to grasp it to the Terran. An initiating gesture Red recognizes. Placing her hand in there, she is surprised by the tight grip they give, though she's not quite sure why. Then with a light tug, the four-eyed individual steps away nodding, and softly chittering in mumbling vocals. Red waves as the bountifully peaceful encounter comes to a close, as soon she is left alone once more. She quickly rewraps everything in her now new woven blanket, giddy to return to her cave. On her trip back, an unfortunately familiar figure is seen waiting up against a boulder. His gaze is dark, and seething in disappointment and disapproval. Red does her best to brush him off as she walks by, but the man just keeps appearing around trees and foliage as she continues on. He eventually appears right in front of her, forcing her to stop out of instinct.
When our kind first started expanding across Earth, we encountered many rivals. If we didn't outcompete them, then we slaughtered them. That's how we initially lifted ourselves up, by proving to be their superior. Those who inhabit this world are no different. They are our rivals. And much like our species and the Neanderthals, only one will be the inheritors of this world. He lectures grimly. Red rushes forward with her eyes closed, not wanting to hear any more of what this freak had to say. I lied. We also brought some into the fold, if not fully subjugated. Walls became our tools, our teeth, our loyal extensions of our will to rise above all else. We earned that. Don't allow yourself to become a dog to them. We have no use for unloyal mutts. The man's voice continues in dark growls. Red shakes her head and picks up the pace. Resisting us will only lead to your ruin. Must I remind you? A sharp pain stabs into Red's mind, causing her to hold in place and clutch the sides of her head. Gritting her teeth, she reels forward, whining in pain. When the pain subsides, she opens her eyes to see many, many dead bodies. Without counting, she knows that there's exactly 23, all in the various states where she left them. Her breathing quickens, and heart feels as though it's been torn out. She falls to her knees and screams as the crushing weight of what she did all comes down on her at once. There is nothing else but the raw knowledge of her actions, of her blood-soaked hands. Remember you told me that we should retire on some station somewhere? Just the two of us? A woman's voice asks. Dreading what she would see, Red looks up to see a far worse scene than she imagined. All of her deceased family are now standing and facing her. Whether or not they have both legs to stand on, or intact faces to express, they all stand and judge her from all angles. A woman casually walks up to Red, with a heel sticking right out of her chest. She had short, dirty blonde hair, hardened blue eyes, and a face Red remembers passionately kissing on many occasions. It's the face she sees in entangled embraces, a face she once loved. And I said yes. You remember, right? What a fucking dream that was. All you had to do was follow orders, to trust us. But nope. In an instant, you decided your family was worth less than a morally difficult mission. Do you really think we were sent there for no good reason? Of course not. You're too fucking stupid to see the big picture. You know it's true. Even before you rotted your goddamn brain with drugs and booze. Fucking pathetic, she says, with a stern expression. Fucking pathetic. Everyone else agreed in cold unison. Red closes her eyes and calls forward, sobbing maniacally. This is what awaits you without us. Do you really? The man's voice speaks up, but is cut off by something distracting him. A sound of clinking metal footsteps approach from behind Red. As it gets close, she can feel a warm presence on her shoulder. I'm sorry you saw Mr. Howard collapse at school today. That must have been really scary and confusing and... Yeah, I hear you. You know, kiddo, there are some things I've seen that should have scarred me for life. Well, in truth it has. It's hard not to think about those things when there's nothing to occupy the old noggin. It's really hard sometimes. But thankfully I have you to think about. Things like this in your life are going to stick to you. But it's just weights that you're going to have to learn to carry. But you don't have to do it alone. I'm right here for you. Whether you want to talk or not, I'm here. Says the warm, toned voice that convinced her to cross the raging river when she first arrived here. Red tilts up to see the walking dead are now gone, leaving just the man who is staring quizzically at the comforting interloper. Turning her gaze to her shoulder, Red sees a metal gauntlet. Following it, she sees a fuzzy figure clad as though they were a knight. It's hard to focus on him, as if he is a genuine apparition of a mystical origin. That is rooted far deeper in your subconscious than I would have suspected. I wonder, perhaps that is what holds you back. Who are you deep down, without his influence? The man muses as he lifts an open hand to the knight. Don't! Red warns, enraged, but to no avail. The knight starts to flicker away with a searing pain within her head. The man's smirk hardens as the knight stands upright, still looking down at Red through thin metal slits. His existence flickers with greater frequency, causing Red's mind to reel more and more from the pain. The knight speaks in random out-of-context sentences, between warble screeching. Good catch, kiddo. That's my gal. Look at that. For me? What a wonderful artist you are. Come on. Get your butt out of bed. You're gonna be late for... How did that test go? A C? Right on. Wanna watch Star Wars 14 again? Love you too. See you after work. With a final fuzzy exit from reality, the thing disappeared, whatever it was. Her brain pulsing in pressuring pain, Red sneers at the man. Though she can't remember what he stole, she still knows he stole something important. Put off in the unexpected effort he gave into severing that connection, he actually flinches as the furious redhead swings a stick at him. Though of course it does nothing but pass right through. Let's give this a test run. See what you're really made of. He chuckles before vanishing, no longer shy for her to look away first. She still wildly swings the stick around in the space that the bust occupied, screaming out in a rage that she can't recall the exact reasoning for. He reveals something horrible to her, then stole something else. That's all she can make out from her own burning emotions. She is sick of being someone else's insane plans, toying with her very mind and free will. This anger inside her is not ceasing. Rather, it's overwhelming every other thought, every rational reasoning. And she doesn't know how to stop it. She's gonna kill that man, no matter what it takes. First chance she gets to get close to him, she'll fucking take it. Meek reviews her notes over and over, still hardly believing how much of a discovery this all is. Truly is gonna change the world as her species knows it. She imagines a future where two peoples come together and build a prolific destiny. Perhaps someday they will fly far past where their airships can go, and even beyond. These notes are the beginning of something wonderful, her first step to an inspiring legacy. Her grand and albeit naive daydreaming is interrupted by sharp and loud animal calls. The tones are coarse and thick, as more than one proclaims their existence. On the alert, Meek scans the trees in the direction of the unknown animals to catch sight of another. Well, in her notes she decides to refer to them as cave folk, though that is referencing from a single instance, is a mere temporary designation until the language barrier is crossed. But at this moment, another cave folk standing confidently a good distance away. Unlike the one she just interacted with, this one had no fur on their scalp, nor are they barren of clothing. Though the most concerning aspect with this new one are the two leashed beasts at their waist. Fur-covered muscular quadruped monsters with snapping jaws and violent intent. The creature holding them back bares their teeth, before shouting clear words that Meek fails to understand, though the beasts somehow grow more ferocious and giddy from whatever those words meant. The creature lowers their hands and unhooks the leashes. The beasts take off towards their prey, hitting terrifying speeds very quickly. Not even thinking about it, she turns around and bolts as fast as her digit-grade legs can go, although even impressing herself with a speed she never accomplished before. The horrid sharp calls of the beast behind her only grew louder and louder. She considers climbing a tree to escape, but recalls watching the red-furred creature climb them before while studying from afar. So if she were to get trapped up in a tree, she might have nowhere to go. Best save that as a last resort. Her only hope is to make the red-furred one. They may know this other one and its beasts, or at least they may know how to deal with them. But before long, Meek feels hot breath snap at her tail, the crushing jaws just missing her by a hair. Having no other choice, she leaps up and scrambles up the closest tree, seeing the two monsters jump up the side and lash out threateningly. Thankfully, tree climbing isn't their specialty. It's then Meek remembers she has a bow. Of course. Taking it free from her back, she swiftly knocks an arrow and shoots it down, striking one of the beasts in its upper torso. It repeatedly whines in high-pitched squeals, running off. Before she can ready another arrow, a large spear thunks right next to her into the tree bark. That furless cave folk managed to throw it from an impressive distance, thankfully hindering the accuracy. However, she can already see they are already preparing another toss. Quickly she maneuvers around the other side of the tree for cover. The remaining beast below her trails around, giving the lock on her location, no doubt to update his master. Cursing under her breath, she releases an arrow down, sending it through this beast's cranium, ending its existence quickly. Not wanting to pass up this opportunity, she slides down and dashes onward, keeping herself as low and hidden as possible as she does so. However, as soon as she begins to believe she may have escaped, a sudden burst of pain explodes from her thigh. She trips over and tumbles harshly into the ground. Dazed,
She blindly scrambles in a desperate, clawing crawl. But the spear that has sunk into her leg is ripped out, and a malicious kick sends her rolling away. When she comes to a stop, her four eyes see the furthest K-folk. A deep, nasty healed-over scar distorts their facial point and mouth, but the grin they wore is unmistakable. Meek tries to get up again, but the shooting pain in her wounded leg is unbearable. All she can do is push her torso up with her arms, as the K-folk pull back for the final blow. But they wait, as if expecting something. Then, right on cue, causing the grin of the attacker to sink deeper, the red-furred K-folk grunted loudly in rage. The furthest one relaxes their pose, and turns to see the other of their species approach, stick in one hand, new blade in the other. Meek's hope sparked to life. This must have been a complete misunderstanding. Though the outcome was truly terrible, there's nothing she can't forgive. If overcoming this means a better introduction for the rest of her kind, this is worth it. At least, that's what she thinks before the furthest begins speaking to the red one. Their tone is warm and inviting, before gesturing to Meek in an accusatory manner. And the red one's face softens, and nods. Oh no. The furthest one laughs in cheer and speaks more, before once again gesturing to Meek, but in an inviting manner this time. The red one nods again and starts walking up to the injured Grat, freshly gifted blade at the ready. Meek lifts a grasp in plea. Please, don't. I just want to know you. For our people's sake, it doesn't have to be this way. I know you don't understand me, but please, she chitters aloud in desperate cries. Hesitating only slightly, the K-folk kneels down and presses the sharp blade against the Grat's neck. Meek can see a rage behind the emerald eyes that seem to look right through her. In the last plea, Meek grabs their forearm and squeezes. The red-furred K-folk's eyes blink and genuinely meet the Grat's. A gradual expansion of the circular irises occurs, and the pressure of the blade is removed. They release a shaking breath, and inhale even more so. Red doesn't want to do this. Despite having everything to gain by doing so, she can leave with her own kind and get revenge on the man in her head. She would just need to... She has killed before. Why is it so hard? Why is this making her feel so sick? Hey, what's the hold up? Want to end your proving now and end all this? Kill the fucker, and you're done. The bald man barks in an order. No, she utters. You fuck. If you don't do this, we can end you with the flick of a switch. Meek watches as the red K-folk's brow furrows, and then, in a swift, twisting motion, throws a small blade into the other's torso. The furless screams in surprised agony as the red one lurches on them and yanks the blade free only to stab them again, and again, and again, in fierce ferocity. Throwing the red one from them, the profusely bleeding K-folk attempts to ready their spear, yet they are not fast enough to stop the redhead from tackling the both to the ground in a grappling tussle. Meek realizes that these two may have been of the same species, but certainly are not kin. Glancing around, she looks to where she initially tripped up. The red's wrist gets harshly twisted, involuntarily releasing the knife. The furless then gets the advantage, getting on top, forcing their graspers onto the neck of the reds. The red attempts to wrench free by grabbing onto the thickest side digits and pulling away. This works until the furless snatches the lost knife to enact the same damage done to them. However, they reel and choke as an arrow plunges into the base of their neck. Meek reaches for another arrow, but there's no need. This opportunity is enough for the red to force the other off and reclaim their weapon and bludgeon several more times into the already fallen enemy. Staggering up to their feet, the victorious red-furred K-folk quickly picks up the spear, claiming ownership. Red and Meek then share another awkward glance before the K-folk lifts and casts a spear at the Grat. Seeing her life flash before her eyes from this utter betrayal, the spear flies over her head, striking its target. The fast-approaching beast with an arrow in its back gets only a single whine as it is partially run through by the spear. Meek watches the terrible thing plop and roll. Then, as if in a dream, gazes back at the red K-folk, now scavenging from their dead brethren. Thank you. I'll be sure to bring you many grain bars, she chitters in a deepening daze. I'm so glad I didn't take Nodgen with me today, she gravely considers, for unconsciousness comes over her.